There is a moment in life when you become tired, not because life is too difficult, but because you have spent too much of your life trying to be accepted by others. You begin to notice how much energy you have given away. You changed your words so people would like you. You changed your decisions so people would approve of you. You remained silent when you wanted to speak, and you spoke when you wanted to remain silent. You questioned yourself because someone else questioned you. And slowly, without realizing it, you started living a life designed around the expectations of other people. But ask yourself something very honestly. How much of your life is truly yours? How many decisions have you made because they were right for you? And how many because you were afraid of what someone else might think? This is where freedom begins. Not when everyone understands you, not when everyone approves of you, not when everyone finally sees your value. Freedom begins when you no longer need them to, because the person who needs constant validation is never truly standing on solid ground. Their confidence rises when they are praised and collapses when they are criticized. Their peace depends on approval. Their identity depends on recognition. But when you learn to stand within yourself, something changes. You become quieter. You become calmer. You stop explaining every decision. You stop chasing every compliment. You stop defending yourself against every opinion. And you begin to understand that your worth was never something another person had the power to give you. You do not need permission to become who you are. You do not need applause to continue walking, and you certainly do not need everyone to understand your path. Sometimes the greatest form of strength is simply being able to say, "This is right for me," and continue walking without needing anyone to agree. That does not mean you become arrogant. It means you become grounded. You can listen without being controlled. You can accept criticism without allowing it to define you. You can receive praise without becoming addicted to it. You can be misunderstood without desperately trying to correct everyone. And this is a kind of freedom that cannot be given to you by another person. It must be built inside you, because the moment you stop asking, "Do they like me?" and begin asking, "Am I living according to my values?" your entire life begins to change. You stop performing, you start living. You stop chasing acceptance. You start choosing authenticity. And perhaps for the first time, you discover what it feels like to belong to yourself. So today, do not ask the world to tell you who you are. Become quiet enough to hear your own answer. Because the moment you stop needing validation, you become free. Imagine waking up every morning with one question quietly controlling your life. What will they think of me? You may never say it aloud, but it can influence almost everything you do. You choose your clothes based on opinions. You speak carefully because you fear judgment. You hesitate before making decisions because you are wondering whether people will approve. You post something and immediately check who liked it. Someone compliments you and suddenly you feel confident. Someone criticizes you and suddenly you begin questioning yourself. This is what happens when your sense of worth depends on approval. The problem is not that you appreciate kindness or enjoy encouragement. There is nothing wrong with receiving praise. The problem begins when praise becomes necessary for you to feel valuable. When you need people to approve of you before you can trust yourself, you have handed them control over your inner world. Think about how exhausting that is. You cannot control what people think. You cannot control whether they understand you. You cannot control whether they like your choices. You cannot control whether someone will praise you today and criticize you tomorrow. Yet, if your peace depends on these things, your peace will always be unstable. One person can lift you up with a few words, while another can destroy your confidence with a single sentence. Why give another person that much power? Your value existed before anyone noticed you. It existed before anyone praised you. It existed before anyone recognized your abilities. And it will remain even when someone misunderstands you. You do not become more valuable because someone says you are valuable. You do not become less valuable because someone fails to see it. This understanding changes the way you move through life. You begin to make decisions based on principles instead of applause. You begin asking yourself, is this the right thing for me? Rather than, will people approve of this? You begin choosing what brings meaning instead of what brings attention. There will be moments when people disagree with you. Let them. There will be moments when someone misunderstands your intentions. Let them. There will be moments when your growth makes people uncomfortable because they were accustomed to the old version of you. Let them. You do not have to turn every misunderstanding into an explanation. You do not have to defend every decision. You do not have to prove your goodness to everyone who doubts it. When you stop seeking approval, you do not stop caring about people. You simply stop abandoning yourself to keep them satisfied. That distinction is powerful. You can listen to advice without surrendering your judgment. You can accept constructive criticism without allowing it to become your identity. You can appreciate compliments without becoming dependent on them. You can respect someone's opinion while still choosing your own path. This is emotional independence, and emotional independence does not happen overnight. It develops every time you choose yourself without guilt, every time you make a decision because it aligns with your values, every time you remain calm when someone disapproves, every time you resist the urge to explain yourself simply because you are afraid of being misunderstood. Slowly, something inside you becomes stronger. You realize that you were never meant to live your life as a performance for an audience. You were meant to live it with awareness. You were meant to know why you walk, why you choose, why you stay, why you leave, and what you stand for. When you no longer need approval, you stop asking the world for permission to be yourself. There is a certain kind of freedom that begins when you realize that not every opinion deserves a place inside your mind. People will always have something to say. They will judge your choices, question your direction, misunderstand your intentions, compare your progress, and sometimes criticize you simply because your life does not look like theirs. If you allow every opinion to enter your mind, you will spend your entire life trying to become someone who satisfies everyone. And that person does not exist. You can be kind, and someone will call you weak. You can be confident, and someone will call you arrogant. You can remain silent, and someone will say you have nothing to say. You can speak your truth, and someone will say you are too much. You can work hard, and someone will accuse you of trying too hard. You can choose peace, and someone will mistake it for surrender. This is why you must learn to detach from other people's opinions. Detachment does not mean becoming cold. It does not mean ignoring everyone. It means understanding that another person's perception is not automatically your reality. Someone may look at your life through their own fears, experiences, insecurities, and expectations. They may judge you according to standards that were never meant to guide your life. If you accept every judgment as truth, you will slowly lose contact with your own inner voice. Ask yourself, does this opinion deserve my energy? Not every opinion does. Some advice is valuable. Some criticism can help you grow. Some people genuinely want the best for you. But there are also opinions that exist only to pull you into doubt. Learning the difference is part of maturity. When someone criticizes you, pause before reacting. You do not have to defend yourself immediately. You do not have to prove them wrong. You do not have to answer every accusation. Sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is the recognition that an argument is not worth your peace. Imagine how different your life would feel if someone could dislike you without making you dislike yourself. Imagine being able to walk away from criticism without carrying it for days. Imagine hearing someone say, "I don't agree with you," and simply responding internally, "That is okay. That is strength." Because your goal in life should not be to create universal approval. Your goal should be to become deeply rooted in your own values. When you know what you stand for, opinions become information rather than commands. You can listen, you can consider, you can learn, but you remain the one who decides. This is especially important when you are growing. Growth often makes you unfamiliar to people who knew your previous version. When you establish boundaries, people who benefited from your lack of boundaries may complain. When you become disciplined, people who were comfortable with your old habits may question you. When you stop chasing attention, people may wonder why you have changed. You have changed because you are becoming more conscious of how you spend your energy. You do not need to convince everyone that your transformation is real. Your life will demonstrate it. The less you depend on external opinions, the more clearly you can hear your own thoughts. And when the noise becomes quieter, you begin to recognize what you actually want. You begin making choices from clarity rather than fear. You begin saying no without feeling guilty. You begin saying yes without needing approval. You begin walking away without needing the other person to understand why. This is not about believing that you are always right. It is about being secure enough to admit when you are wrong, without feeling that your entire identity has collapsed. That is true detachment. You can change your mind without losing yourself. You can receive correction without losing confidence. You can disagree without becoming enemies. And you can be misunderstood without spending your entire life trying to explain yourself. At some point, you must decide whose voice deserves the final word in your life. Listen to others, but return to yourself. Because when you stop allowing every opinion to control your emotions, you stop living according to the noise around you and begin living according to the quiet strength within you. There comes a point in your life when you realize that constantly waiting for someone else to tell you that you are doing well is keeping you from truly trusting yourself. You may ask for advice, seek reassurance, look for approval, or compare your progress with others, because somewhere inside, you are afraid that your own judgment is not enough. But if you always need someone else to confirm your choices, you will never fully experience the strength that comes from trusting your own mind. Inner validation begins when you learn to recognize your own worth without requiring another person to announce it. It means knowing that you are valuable even when nobody praises you. It means respecting your effort even when nobody notices it. It means being proud of your progress even when your journey looks ordinary to everyone else. Think about how often people measure themselves through external signals. They look at likes, compliments, attention, achievements, money, status, or recognition, and use these things as evidence that they are enough. But external recognition is unstable. Today people may celebrate you. Tomorrow they may ignore you. If your confidence depends on their reaction, then your confidence will constantly rise and fall. You need something deeper. You need an inner foundation. That foundation is built by keeping promises to yourself. When you say you will wake up early and you do it, you teach yourself that your word matters. When you decide to stop a destructive habit and remain committed, you teach yourself that you can trust your discipline. When you choose to continue working, even when nobody is watching, you teach yourself that your effort does not require an audience. This is how self-trust grows. Not through motivational words alone, but through repeated action. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen the relationship you have with yourself. And every time you repeatedly abandon your own values simply to gain approval, that relationship becomes weaker. So begin paying attention to your own standards. Ask yourself what kind of person you want to become. Not what kind of person will impress others. Not what kind of person will receive the most attention. But what kind of person will allow you to respect yourself when you are alone with your thoughts? That question can change your life. Because when you know your values, decisions become simpler. You may still face difficult choices, but you no longer need an entire crowd to tell you which direction to take. You can listen to advice, you can learn from experienced people, you can accept criticism. But ultimately, you return to your own judgment. This does not mean believing that you are always right. Inner validation is not arrogance. It is not refusing to learn. It is the ability to remain secure while recognizing that you are still growing. You can say, I made a mistake, without saying, I am a failure. You can say, I don't know, without feeling ashamed. You can say, I need to change, without believing that you have no worth. This is the difference between self-awareness and self-rejection. You begin to understand that mistakes are information. Failure is feedback. Criticism can be useful. Growth can be uncomfortable. None of these things have to destroy your sense of identity. And slowly, you stop looking outside yourself for permission to feel worthy. You become your own witness. You notice your progress. You recognize your discipline. You acknowledge your courage. You respect the battles that nobody else knows you are fighting. There will still be days when you doubt yourself. There will still be moments when you want reassurance. That is human. The goal is not to eliminate every doubt. The goal is to stop allowing doubt to control your direction. When you can stand alone without feeling incomplete, something powerful happens. You become less desperate for attention. You become less afraid of rejection. You become less dependent on praise. And you become more capable of choosing what is right instead of what is popular. That is inner validation. It is the quiet and confidence of knowing that even when the world becomes silent, you can still hear your own voice. And when you learn to trust yourself, you no longer need everyone else to believe in you before you begin believing in yourself. There is a certain freedom that comes when you stop needing everyone to understand you. For much of life, we are taught to explain ourselves. We explain our decisions, our silence, our boundaries, our changes, and even our dreams, because we fear that if people misunderstand us, they may judge us. So we keep talking, defending, proving, and correcting until we become exhausted. But not everyone needs to understand your path. Some people will only understand you through the version of you they already know. When you change, they may become confused. When you become more disciplined, they may think you are distant. When you stop participating in unnecessary drama, they may call you cold. When you begin protecting your peace, they may accuse you of changing. And perhaps you have changed. But change is not always something you need to apologize for. You are allowed to outgrow habits, environments, relationships, and even versions of yourself that once felt comfortable. You are allowed to choose a different direction simply because you have learned something new about yourself. The mistake is believing that every person must understand your reasons before you are allowed to move forward. They do not. Sometimes you can explain yourself clearly and still be misunderstood. Sometimes you can speak with kindness, and someone will still interpret your words through their own assumptions. Sometimes you can have the purest intention, and another person will create an entirely different story about you. If you make your peace dependent on being understood, you will spend your life trying to control something that cannot be controlled. People see life through their own experiences. They interpret your actions through their own fears. They judge your choices through their own expectations. That is why two people can witness the same situation and walk away with completely different conclusions. You cannot enter another person's mind and rearrange their perception. So stop trying to. This does not mean becoming careless about how you treat people. Your character still matters. Your actions still matter. Kindness still matters. But there is a difference between acting with integrity and constantly trying to manage everyone's opinion of you. Integrity means you do what is right, even when nobody applauds. It means you can walk away knowing that you were honest with yourself. You may be misunderstood, but you do not have to become defensive. You may be criticized, but you do not have to become bitter. You may be rejected, but you do not have to reject yourself. This is where emotional strength begins. There will be moments when silence is more powerful than explanation. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you understand that some conversations are not meant to produce understanding. They are simply invitations into unnecessary conflict. You do not need to attend every argument you are invited to. You do not need to answer every accusation. You do not need to correct every misunderstanding. Sometimes the strongest response is to continue living in alignment with your values. Let your actions speak over time. If someone believes you are weak because you choose peace, let your consistency answer. If someone believes you are arrogant because you created boundaries, let your character answer. If someone believes you have changed because you stopped seeking their approval, let your growth answer. You do not have to convince them. The people who genuinely care about you will eventually see your actions. And those who are committed to misunderstanding, you may never be satisfied, no matter how much you explain. So do not spend your precious energy trying to earn understanding from everyone. Spend it becoming someone you understand. Know why you make your choices. Know what your values are. Know what you will accept and what you will no longer tolerate. Know where you are going. When you are clear within yourself, outside confusion becomes less powerful. You can walk through a room where people disagree with you and still remain peaceful. You can hear criticism and still remain grounded. You can be misunderstood and still continue forward. That is not indifference. That is freedom. Because eventually you realize that your life is not a courtroom where everyone must agree with your decisions before you are allowed to move forward. You are not here to convince the entire world of your worth. You are here to live with honesty, discipline, awareness, and peace. And when you become comfortable being misunderstood, you stop performing for acceptance and finally begin living according to what you know is true within yourself. There is a moment when you realize that being accepted by everyone is not worth the price of losing your peace. For a long time, you may believe that happiness comes from being liked, understood, included, and approved of. You try to keep everyone satisfied. You avoid difficult conversations. You say yes when you want to say no. You stay in situations that drain you because you are afraid of disappointing someone. But peace cannot grow where you are constantly betraying yourself. Choosing peace over acceptance means understanding that you do not need to be liked by everyone to live a meaningful life. You do not need every person to agree with your decisions. You do not need to remain available to people who repeatedly disturb your balance simply because you are afraid they might be unhappy with you. Sometimes peace requires a difficult choice. Sometimes it means walking away. Sometimes it means saying no. Sometimes it means allowing someone to misunderstand you. Sometimes it means disappointing people who were comfortable with the version of you that always said yes. And this can feel uncomfortable in the beginning. Because when you have spent years seeking acceptance, setting boundaries can feel like rejection. You may feel guilty for protecting your time. You may question yourself when you choose silence. You may wonder whether you are being selfish when you finally put your own well-being into consideration. But there is a difference between selfishness and self-respect. Selfishness says, only I matter. Self-respect says, I matter too. You can care about other people without abandoning yourself. You can be compassionate without becoming available to everyone. You can help others without carrying their entire world on your shoulders. You can love someone and still recognize that distance is necessary. Peace does not mean that life will become completely free of problems. It means you stop creating additional suffering by constantly fighting for approval. When you choose acceptance over peace, you begin monitoring every reaction. You wonder whether someone is angry. You worry whether they misunderstood your message. You replay conversations in your head. You change your behavior because someone disapproved. Your mind becomes occupied with other people's emotions. But you cannot control everyone's emotions. Someone may be disappointed because you set a boundary. Someone may become angry because you refuse to participate in something unhealthy. Someone may stop giving you attention because you stopped chasing theirs. Let them feel what they feel. Their emotions are not automatically your responsibility. You can remain respectful without surrendering your peace. This is where maturity becomes visible. You learn that not every uncomfortable feeling needs to be fixed immediately. Sometimes another person's disappointment is simply the natural consequence of you making a healthy decision. And when you stop fearing that disappointment, you become stronger. You begin choosing your environment more carefully. You become selective about the conversations you participate in. You stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided what they want to believe. You stop chasing relationships that require you to constantly prove your value. You begin asking a different question. Not, how can I make everyone happy? But, does this choice allow me to remain at peace with myself? That question can protect you from many unnecessary struggles, because peace is not found by controlling the world around you. Peace is found by controlling what you allow to control you. You cannot stop people from talking. You cannot stop people from judging. You cannot stop people from leaving. You cannot make everyone understand your heart. But you can decide how much power their reactions will have over your inner state. And that is a powerful form of freedom. The more comfortable you become with choosing peace, the less you need external validation. You stop measuring your worth by how many people stay. You stop measuring your success by how many people applaud. You stop measuring your identity by how many people approve. You begin measuring yourself by something deeper. Did I act according to my values? Did I remain honest? Did I protect what mattered? Did I treat people with respect? Did I remain true to myself? When the answer is yes, you can walk away from the noise with a quiet heart. You may not be understood, you may not be accepted, you may not receive applause, but you will have something far more valuable. You will have peace with yourself. And when you no longer trade your inner peace for the temporary approval of others, you discover that true freedom was never about getting everyone to accept you. It was about finally becoming secure enough to accept yourself. At some point, you must stop asking the world to confirm your worth. You must stop waiting for someone to approve your choices before you trust yourself. Stop measuring your value by attention, praise, acceptance, or recognition. These things may feel good, but they are temporary. Your inner peace cannot be built on something that another person can give or take away. You will be misunderstood. You will be criticized. You will disappoint people. Some people will leave when you begin setting boundaries. Some will question you when you stop explaining yourself. Some will no longer recognize you because you are no longer the person who needs their approval. And that is okay. You were never meant to live your life as a performance for other people. You were meant to live it with awareness. Choose your values over applause. Choose discipline over attention. Choose peace over acceptance. Choose your own path even when nobody is clapping for you. Listen to others, but do not lose yourself in their opinions. Accept advice, but learn to trust your own judgment. Receive praise, but do not depend on it. Accept criticism, but do not let it define you. And most importantly, learn to be comfortable with yourself. Because when you can stand alone without feeling incomplete, you become difficult to manipulate. When you no longer need everyone to like you, rejection loses its power. When you no longer need everyone to understand you, misunderstanding loses its power. When you no longer need validation, the world loses its ability to control your peace. This is where true freedom begins. Not when everyone accepts you, not when everyone praises you, not when everyone understands you, but when you can look within yourself and say, I know who I am, I know what I stand for, and I do not need the world to give me permission to live according to it. So walk forward quietly. Let people think what they want. Let them misunderstand. Let them disagree. Let them leave. Your responsibility is not to control their perception of you. Your responsibility is to remain honest with yourself. Because the moment you stop needing validation, you stop performing for the world, and for the first time, you become completely free.